Our Town by Thornton Wilder, a drama that has been performed more than any other play in the history of the American theater. Starring in alphabetical order, Ned Beatty, Barbara Bell Geddes, Robbie Benson, Ronnie Cox, Glynis O'Connor, Sadie Thompson, and Hal Holbrook as the stage manager.
This play is called Our Town. It is written by Thornton Wilder. The name of the town is Grover's Corners, New Hampshire, just across the Massachusetts line. Latitude 42 degrees 40 minutes, longitude 70 degrees 37 minutes. Well, I better show you how our town lies. Up here is Main Street. Cutting across it over there on the left is the railroad tracks. Across the tracks is Polish Town. You know, foreign people come here to work in the mill, a couple of Canuck families, and the Catholic Church. Over there is a Congregational Church. Across the streets, Presbyterian, Methodist, and Unitarian are over here. Baptist is down in the holler by the river. Right here is the town hall and post office combined. Jail's in the basement. Brian once made a speech from these very steps here. Along here's a row of stores, hitching posts and horse blocks in front of them. First automobile's going to come along in about 5 years. Belong to Banker Cartwright, our richest citizen. Lives in the big White House up on the hill. Right here's the grocery store, and here's Mr. Morgan's drugstore. Most everybody in town manages to look into those two stores once a day. The public school's over yonder, high school's still further over. 8:45 mornings, noon times, and 3 o'clock afternoons, the whole town can hear the yelling and screaming from those schoolyards. Nice town, you know what I mean? Nobody very remarkable ever come out of it, so far as we know. The earliest tombstones in the cemetery up there on the mountain say 1670, 1680. They're Grovers and Cartwrights, Gibbses and Hearseys, same names as around here now. The first act shows a day in our town. The day is May 7, 1901. The time is just 4 dawn. Yeah, the sky is beginning to show some streaks of light over in the east there, behind our mountain. The morning star always gets wonderful bright. A minute before it has to go, doesn't it? This is our doctor's house, Doc Gibbs. Mrs. Gibbs' garden, corn, beans, peas, hollyhock, heliotrope, a lot of burdock. In those days, our town newspaper come out twice a week, the Grover's Corners Sentinel, and this is Editor Webb's house. Miss Webb's garden, just like Miss Gibbs, only it's got a lot of sunflowers, too, and a big butternut tree. Of course, we could have actual trees and houses if we thought you needed them, but, you know this town, don't you? Well, as I said, it's just about dawn. The only lights on in town are in a cottage over by the tracks where a Polish mother's just had twins, and in the Joe Crowell house where Joe Jr.'s getting up so as to deliver the paper, and in the depot where Shorty Hawkins getting ready to flag the 5:45 for Boston. Naturally, out in the country, all around, there've been lights on for some time, what with milkins and so on. The town folks sleep late. So another day's begun. Here's Doc Gibbs coming down Main Street now, coming back from that baby case. And here's his wife coming downstairs to get breakfast. Doc Gibbs died in 1930. New hospital's named after him. Miss Gibbs died first, long time ago, in fact. She went out to visit her daughter, Rebecca, who married an insurance man in Canton, Ohio, and died there, pneumonia. But her body was brought back here. She's up in the cemetery there now, in with a whole mess of Gibbses and Hearses. She was Julia Hersey before she married Doc Gibbs in the Congregational Church over there. In our town, we like to know the facts about everybody. That's Doc Gibbs. Got that call at 1:30 this morning. And there comes Joe Crowell, Jr., delivering Mr. Webb's Sentinel.
Morning, Doc.
Morning, Joe.
Somebody been sick, Doc?
No, just some twins born over in Polish town.
Want your paper now?
Yes, I'll take it. Anything serious going on in the world since Wednesday?
Yes, sir. My school teacher, Miss Foster's getting married to a fellow over in Concord.
I declare. How do you boys feel about that?
Well, of course, it's none of my business. But I think if a person starts out to be a teacher, she ought to stay one.
How's your knee, Joe?
Fine, Doc. Never think about it at all. Only like you said, it always tells me when it's gonna rain.
Well, what's it telling you today? Go in the rain?
No, sir.
Sure?
Yes, sir.
Knee ever make a mistake?
No, sir.
I'll tell you something about that boy Joe Crowell there. Joe was awful bright. Graduated high school here, head of his class. So he got a scholarship to Massachusetts Tech. Graduated head of his class there, too. It was all wrote up in the Boston paper at the time. Gonna be a great engineer, Joe was. But the war broke out, and he died in France. All that education for nothing.
G'day, Bessie. What's the matter with you today?
Here comes Howie Newsom delivering the milk.
Morning, Doc.
Morning, Howie.
Somebody sick?
Pair of twins over to Mrs. Garoslavsky's.
Twins, eh? This town's getting bigger every year.
Going to rain, Howie.
No, fine day. That'll burn through. Come on, Bessie.
Hello, Bessie. How old is she, Howie?
Going on 17. Bessie's all mixed up about the route ever since the Lockhart stopped taking that quart of milk every day. She wants to leave my quart just the same. Keeps scolding me the whole trip.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning, Miss Gibbs. Doc's just coming down the street.
Is he? Seems like you're late today.
Yes, something went wrong with the separator. Don't know what 'twas.
Children! Children, time to get up. George, Rebecca.
Come on, Bessie.
Everything all right, Frank?
Yes, I declare. Easy as kittens.
Bacon will be ready in a minute. Sit down, drink your coffee. You can catch a couple of hours sleep this morning, can't you?
Mrs. Wentworth's coming 11. Guess I know what it's about, too. Her stomach ain't what it ought to be.
All told, you won't get more than 3 hours sleep. Frank Gibbs, I don't know what's going to become of you. I do wish I could get you to go away someplace and take a rest. I think it'd do you good. I declare you've got to speak to George. Seems like something's come over him lately. He's no help to me at all. I can't even get him to cut me some wood.
Is he sassy to you?
No, he just whines. All he thinks about's that baseball. George, Rebecca, you'll be late for school. George!
George, look sharp.
Yes, Pop.
Don't you hear your mother calling you? Guess I'll go upstairs and get 40 winks.
Emily, time to get up. Wally, 7 o'clock.
As Miss Webb come downstairs to get her breakfast, too.
Don't make a noise. Your father's been out all night and needs his sleep. I washed and ironed the blue gingham for you, special.
Mom, I hate that dress.
Oh, hush up with you.
Mom, George's throwing stuff at me.
I'll come up and slap the both of you. That's what I'll do.
Wally, Emily, you'll be late for school. Wally, you wash yourself good or I'll come up and do it myself.
Every day I go to school just like a sick turkey.
Now, Rebecca, you always look very nice.
We got a factory in our town, hear it? Makes blankets. Cartwrights own it, and it brung them a fortune.
Children, now I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good a meal as any other. I won't have you gobbling like wolves. It'll stunt your growth. That's a fact. Put away your book, Wally.
Mama, by 10 o'clock I gotta know all about Canada.
You know the rules as well as I do. No books at table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
Eat your breakfast. I'll speak to your father about it when he's rested. Seems to me 25 cents a week's enough for a boy your age. I declare I don't know how you'll spend it all.
Oh, Ma, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates, that's what you spend it on.
I don't see how Rebecca comes to so much money. She has more than $1.
I've been saving it up gradual.
Well, dear, I think it's a good thing to spend some every now and then.
Mama, do you know what I love most in the world, do you? Money.
Eat your breakfast. Tell Miss Boston I sent her my best congratulations. Can you remember that? You look real nice, Rebecca. Pick up your feet. Goodbye.
Bye.
No, go away. Go away, you. What's the matter with you? Fight, fight, fight. That's all you do. You don't belong to me. Where'd you come from? Oh, don't be so scared. Nobody's going to hurt you. Come on in, Myrtle. How's your cold? Well, I still get that tickling feeling in my throat. I told Charles I didn't know as I'd go to choir practice tonight. Wouldn't be any use. Have you tried singing over your voice? Yes, but somehow I can't do that and stay on the key. While I'm resting myself, I thought I'd string some of these beans. Let me help you. Beans have been good this year. I've decided to put up 40 quarts if it kills me. The children say they hate them, but I notice they're able to get them down all winter. Now, Myrtle, there's something I've got to tell you, because if I don't tell somebody, I'll burst. Why, Julia Gibbs. Myrtle, did one of those second-hand furniture men from Boston come to see you last Friday? No. Well, he called on me. First, I thought he was a patient wanting to see Dr. Gibbs, and he wormed his way into my parlor. And Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's highboy as I'm sitting here. Why, Julia Gibbs. He did, that old thing. Why, it was so big, I didn't know where to put it. I almost gave it to Cousin Hester Wilcox. Well, you're going to take it, aren't you? Oh, I don't know. You don't know? $350? What's come over you? Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away someplace on a real trip, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. Oh, I don't know. It's crazy, I suppose. But for years, I've been promising myself if we ever had the chance. How does the doctor feel about it? Well, I did beat about the bush a little and said if I got a legacy, that's the way I put it, I'd make him take me somewhere. What'd he say? Oh, you know how he is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he said it might make him discontented with Grover's Corners to go traipsing about Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years, he makes a trip to the battlefields of a civil war, and that's enough treat for anybody, he says. Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibbs knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb's a good mind to give up Napoleon and move over to the Civil War. Only Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts in the country, just makes him despair. It's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's at Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I've walked over those hills, Myrtle, stopping at every bush and pacing it all out like we were going to buy it. Well, if that second-hand man's really serious about buying it, Julia, you sell it. And you'll get to see Paris all right. Just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know. Oh, I'm sorry I mentioned it. But it does seem to me that once in your life, before you die, you ought to see a country where they don't talk in English. And don't even want to.
That'll do, ladies. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to skip a few hours, but first, we want a little more information about the town. Kind of a scientific account, you might say. So I've asked Professor Willett of our state university to sketch in a few details of our past history here. Just a few brief notes. Thank you, Professor. Unfortunately, our time is limited.
Grover's Corners, let me see. Grover's Corners lies on the old Pleistocene granite of the Appalachian Range. I may say that's some of the oldest land in the world, and we're very proud of that. A shelf of Devonian basalt crosses it with vestiges of Mesozoic shale and some sandstone outcroppings, but all that is more recent, 200, 300 million years old. Some highly interesting fossils have been found, I may say unique fossils. 2 miles out of town in Silas Peckham's cow pasture. They can be seen at the museum in our university at any time, that is, at any reasonable time. Now, shall I read some of Professor Gruber's notes on the meteorological situation, the mean precipitation, etc.?
I'm afraid we won't have time for that, Professor. We might have a few words on the history of man here.
Yes. Anthropological data. Early Amerindian stock, Cotahatchee tribes, no evidence before the 10th century of this era, now entirely disappeared, possible traces in 3 families. Migration toward the end of the 17th century of English brachiocephalic blue-eyed stock for the most part. Since then, some Slav and Mediterranean.
And the population, Professor Willard?
The population within the town limits is 2,640.
Just a moment, Professor Willard.
Oh, yes, indeed. The population at the moment is 2,642.
Thank you.
The postal district brings in another 507, making a total of 3,149.
Thank you.
Mortality and birth rates constant by McPherson's gauge, 6.032.
Thank you very much, Professor Willard. We're all very much obliged to you, I'm sure.
Not at all, sir. Not at all.
Now, the political and social report, Editor Webb. Mr. Webb.
He'll be there in a minute. He just cut his hand while he was eating an apple.
Oh, thank you, Miss Webb.
Charles, everybody's waiting.
Mr. Webb is publisher and editor of the Grover's Corners Sentinel. That's our local paper, you know. Mr. Webb? Mr. Webb.
Well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of selectmen. All males vote to age 21. Women vote indirect. We're lower middle class, sprinkling professional men, 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, we're 86% Republicans, 6% Democrats, 4% Socialists, rest indifferent. Religiously, we're 85% Protestants, 12% Catholics, rest indifferent.
Have you any comments, Mr. Webb?
Very ordinary town, if you ask me. Little better behaved than most. Probably a lot duller. But our young people here seem to like it well enough. 90% of them graduating from high school settle down right here to live, even when they've been away to college.
Now, is there anyone out there who'd like to ask Editor Webb anything about the town?
Yes, I would. Is there much drinking in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, I wouldn't know what you'd call much. Saturday nights, the farmhands meet down there at Greeno's stable and holler some. We've got 1 or 2 town drunks, but they're always having remorses every time an evangelist comes to town. No, ma'am, I'd say liquor ain't a regular thing in home here. Except in the medicine chest. Not good for snake bites, you know. Always was.
Is there no one in town aware of social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh, yes, everybody is. Something terrible. Seem like they spend most of the time talking about who's rich and who's poor.
Well, then why don't they do something about it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're all hunting like everybody else for a way the diligent and sensible can rise to the top and the lazy and quarrelsome can sink to the bottom, but it ain't easy to find. Meanwhile, we do all we can to help those who can't help themselves. And those who can, we leave alone. Are there any other questions?
Oh, Mr. Webb, is there any culture or love of beauty in Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, there ain't much. Not in the sense you mean. Well, come to think of it, there's some girls who play the piano at high school commencement. But they ain't happy about it. No, ma'am, there isn't much culture. But maybe this is the place to tell you that we've got a lot of pleasures of a kind here. We like the sun coming up over the mountain in the morning. And we all notice a good deal about the birds. We pay a lot of attention to them. And we watch the change of the seasons. Yeah, everybody knows about them. But those other things, you're right, ma'am, there ain't much. Robinson Crusoe, the Bible, Handel's Largo, we all know that. Whistler's Mother. Those are just about as far as we go.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Now, let's get back to the town. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinners, and all the dishes have been washed. There's an early afternoon calm in our town, a buzzing and a humming from the school buildings. Only a few buggies on Main Street, horses dozing at the hitching posts. You all remember what it's like. Doc Gibbs is in his office tapping people and making them say, ah. Mr. Webb is cutting his lawn. 1 man in 10 thinks it's privilege to push his own lawnmower. No, sir. It's later than I thought. Children are coming home from school already.
Emily, walk simply. Who do you think you are today?
Papa, you're terrible. 1 minute you tell me to stand up straight, and the next minute you call me names. I just don't listen to you.
Golly, I never got the kiss from such a great lady before.
Excuse me, Miss Forrest.
Go and play in the fields, young man. Got no business playing baseball on Main Street.
I'm awful sorry, Miss Forrest. Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made a fine speech in class.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine. But at the last minute, Miss Cochran made me talk about the Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time on both of them.
Gee, it's funny, Emily. From my window up there, I can just see your headlights when you're doing your homework over in your room.
Why, can you?
You certainly do stick to it. I don't see how you can sit still that long. I guess you like school.
Well, I always feel it's something they have to go through.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, really. It passes the time.
Emily, what do you think? We might work out a kind of telegraph from your window to mine, and once in a while you could give me a kind of hint or two on one of those algebra problems. Oh, I don't mean the answers, Emily. Of course not. Just some little hint.
Oh, I think hints are allowed. So, if you get stuck, George, you whistle to me, and I'll give you some hints.
Emily, you're just naturally bright, I guess.
Oh, I figure it's just the way a person's born.
Yeah. But you see, I want to be a farmer. And my Uncle Luke says whenever I'm ready, I can come over and work on his farm. And if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah. Well, thanks. I better be getting out to the baseball field. Thanks for the talk. Good afternoon, Miss Webb.
Afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come help me string these beans for the winter. George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? Why, he's growing up. How old would George be?
I don't know.
Let's see. He must be almost 16.
Mama, I made a speech in class today, and I was very good.
You must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk off a spool. I'm gonna make speeches all my life. Mama, are these big enough?
Try and get them a little bigger if you can.
Mama, will you answer me a question serious?
Seriously, dear, not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Yes, of course you are. Both my children have got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I already told you yes. And that's enough of that. You have a nice, young, pretty face. I never heard of such foolishness.
Mama, you never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, were you pretty?
Yes, I was, if I do say it. I was the prettiest girl in town next to Mamie Cartwright.
Mama, you gotta say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get anybody? To get people interested in me?
Emily, you make me tired. Now stop it. You're pretty enough for all normal purposes. Come along now and bring that bowl with you.
Mama, you're no help at all.
We'll have to interrupt again here. Thank you, Ms. Webb. Thank you, Emily. There are some more things we want to explore about this town. The Cartwright interests have just begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. Had to go to Vermont for the marble, sorry to say. And, they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone for people to dig up 1,000 years from now. Of course, they put in a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. We're kind of interested in this because some scientific fellas have found a way of painting all that reading matter with a kind of glue, a silicate glue that'll make it keep 1,000, 2,000 years. We're putting in a Bible and the Constitution of the United States and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. What do you say, folks? What do you think? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people in it, and all we know about them is the names of the kings and some copies of wheat contracts and contracts for the sale of slaves. And yet every night, all those families sat down to supper, and the father came home from his work, and the smoke went up the chimney, same as here. And even in Greece and Rome, all we know about the real life of the people is what we can piece together out of the joking poems and the comedies they wrote for the theater back then. So I'm going to have a copy of this play put in the cornerstone. And people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us. More than the Treaty of Versailles and the Lindbergh flight, you see what I mean? So people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were. In the provinces north of New York, at the beginning of the 20th century, this is the way we were. In our growing up, and in our marrying, and in our living, and in our dying. Now, we'll get on with our day in Grover's Corners. A good deal of time's gone by. It's evening. You can hear choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. The children are at home doing their schoolwork. The day's running down like a tired clock.
All right, now, do it again. And remember, ladies, music come into the world to give pleasure. get it out of your heads that music's only good when it's loud. You leave loudness to the Methodists. Couldn't beat them even if you wanted to. Now again.
Work at all. Moonlight's so terrible.
Emily, did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third?
Well, yes, George, that's the easiest of them all.
I don't see it. Emily, can you give me a hint?
I'll tell you one thing. The answer's in yards.
Yards? How do you mean?
In square yards.
Oh, in square yards.
Yes, George. Don't you see?
Yeah.
In square yards of wallpaper.
Wallpaper? Oh, I see. Thanks a lot, Emily.
Welcome. My, isn't the moonlight terrible? And choir practice going on? Think if you hold your breath, you can hear the train all the way to Contoocook. Hear it?
What do you know?
Well, guess I'd better go back and try to work.
Good night, Emily. And thanks.
Night, George.
It's better. Well, it ain't no miracle. Now, before I forget it, how many of you will be able to come in next Tuesday afternoon to sing at Fred Hersey's wedding? Show your hands. Oh, well, that'll be fine. Be right nice. We'll do the same music we did at Jane Trowbridge's last month. Now then, we'll do Art Thou Weary, Art Thou Languid. It's a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it talk. Ready? Art thou weary? Art thou languid? Art thou sore distressed?
George, can you come down here a minute?
Yes, Bob.
Now make yourself comfortable, George. I'll only keep you a minute. George, how old are you?
I'm 16. Almost 17.
What do you want to do when school's over?
Well, you know, Pa. I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
You'll be willing, will you, to get up early and milk and feed the stock? You'll be able to hoe and hay all day?
Sure I will. What do you mean, Pa?
Well, George, while I was in here seeing someone today, I heard a funny sound. What do you think it was? It was your mother chopping wood. There you see your mother. Getting up early, cooking meals all day long, washing, ironing. Still, she has to go out in the backyard and chop wood. I guess she just got tired of asking you. She just decided it would be easier to do it herself. And you eat her meals, put on the clothes that she keeps nice for you, and you run off and play baseball like she's some hired girl that we keep around the house, but we don't like very much. Well, I knew all I had to do was draw your attention to it. Here's a handkerchief, son. George, I've decided to raise your spending money 25 cents a week. Now, of course, for chopping wood for your mother, that's a present you give to her. But because you're getting older, and I imagine there are a lot of things that you'll find to do with it.
Thanks, Pa.
Let's see, tomorrow's your payday. You can count on it. Probably Rebecca will feel she ought to have some more, too. Wonder what could be keeping your mother. Choir practice has never been this late before.
It's only 8:30, Pa.
I don't know why she's in that old choir anyway. She hasn't got any more voice than an old crow. Traipsing around the streets this hour of the night. Just about time you retired, don't you think?
Yes, Pa.
Yes, it's fine.
Good night. My, it's late. Good night, Emma. Good night. Real nice choir practice, wasn't it? Myrtle Webb, look at that moon. Potato weather for sure.
Naturally, I didn't want to say a word about it in front of those others. But now we're alone. Really, it's the worst scandal ever was in this town.
What?
Simon Stimson.
Now, Luella.
But, Julia, to have the organist of a church drink and drunk year after year. You know he was drunk tonight.
Now, Luella, we all know about Mr. Stimson, and we all know about the troubles he's been through, and Dr. Ferguson knows, too. And if Dr. Ferguson keeps him on there in his job, the only thing the rest of us can do is just not to notice it.
Not to notice it, but it's getting worse.
No, it isn't, Luella. It's getting better. I've been in that choir twice as long as you have. Doesn't happen anywhere near so often.
I hate to go to bed on a night like this.
I better hurry. Those children will be sitting up till all hours. Good night, Luella.
Good night, Myrtle. Julia.
Good night, Myrtle. Can you get home safe, Luella?
It's as bright as day. I can see Mr. Soames scowling at the window now. You'd think we'd been to a dance the way the men folk carry on. Good night, Julia.
Good night, Luella.
See you on Sunday.
See you then. Well, we had a real good time.
You're late enough.
Why, Frank, it ain't any later than usual.
And you stopping at the corner to gossip with a lot of hens.
Oh, don't be so grouchy. Come out and smell the heliotrope in the moonlight. Isn't that wonderful? What did you do all the time I was away?
Oh, I read, as usual. What were the girls gossiping about tonight?
Well, believe me, Frank, there's something to gossip about.
Simon Stimson, far gone, was he?
Worst I've ever seen him. How will that end, Frank? Dr. Ferguson can't forgive him forever.
I guess I know as much about Simon Stimson's affairs as anybody in this town. Some people ain't made for small-town life. I don't know how that'll end, but there's nothing we can do but just leave it alone. Come, get in.
No, not yet. Frank, I'm worried about you.
What are you worried about?
I think it's my duty to make plans for you to get a real rest and change. And if I get that legacy, I'm going to insist on it.
Now, Julia, there's no sense in going over that again.
Frank, you're just unreasonable.
Come on, Julia. It's getting late. First thing you know, you catch cold. Gave George a piece of my mind tonight. Reckon you'll have your wood chopped for a while anyway. No, start getting upstairs.
Here, there's always so many things to pick up, seems like. You know, Frank, Mrs. Fairchild always locks her front door every night. All those people up that part of town do.
They're getting cityfied. That's the trouble with them. They've got nothing fit to burgle, and everybody knows it.
Get out, Rebecca. There's only room for one at this window.
Let me just look a minute.
We'll use your own window.
I did, but there's no moon there. George, do you know what I think, do you? I think maybe the moon's getting nearer and nearer. There'll be a big explosion.
Rebecca, you don't know anything. If the moon were getting nearer, the guys who sit up all night with their telescopes would see it first. Then they'd tell about it. Then it'd be in all the newspapers.
George, is the moon shining on South America, Canada, and half the whole world?
Well, probably is.
9:30, most of the lights are out. There's Constable Warren trying a few doors on Main Street. And here comes Editor Webb after putting his newspaper to bed.
Evening, Bill. Good evening, Mr. Webb. Quite a moon.
Yeah?
All quiet tonight?
Well, Simon Stimpson's rolling around a little. I just saw his wife moving out to hunt for him, so I looked the other way. Here he is now.
Good evening, Simon. Town seems to have settled down for the night pretty well. Good evening. Yeah? Most of the town settled down for the night, Simon. I guess we'd better do the same. Can I walk a ways with you? Good night.
How that's going to end, Mr. Webb?
Well, he's seen a peck of trouble. One thing after another. Oh, Bill, if you see my boy smoking cigarettes, give him a word, will you? He thinks a lot of you, Bill.
Don't think he smokes no cigarettes, Mr. Webb. Leastways not more than 2 or 3 a year.
I hope not. Well, good night, Bill.
Good night, Mr. Webb.
Who's that up there? Is that you, Myrtle?
Oh, no, it's me, Papa.
Why aren't you in bed?
I don't know. I just can't sleep yet, Papa. The moonlight's so wonderful. The smell of Mrs. Gibbs' heliotrope. Can you smell it?
Yeah? Haven't any troubles on your mind, have you, Emily?
Troubles, Papa? No.
Well, enjoy yourself. Don't let your mother catch you. Good night, Emily.
Night, Papa.
I never told you about that letter Jane Crawford got from a minister when she was sick. Wrote Jane a letter. On the envelope, the address was like this. Sent to Jane Crawford, the Crawford Farm, Grover's Corners, Sutton County, New Hampshire, the United States of America.
What's so funny about that?
But listen, it's not finished. United States of America, continent of North America, Western Hemisphere, the Earth, the solar system, the universe, the mind of God. And that's what it said on the envelope.
What do you know?
Yep, and the postman brought it just the same.
What do you know?
That's the end of the act, friends. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. 3 years have gone by. Yes, the sun's come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit more, and the rains have brought down some of the dirt. Some babies that weren't even born before have begun talking regular sentences already. And a number of people who thought they were right young and spry have noticed they can't bound up a flight of stairs like they used to without their heart fluttering a little. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing and contriving in other ways, too. A number of young people fell in love and got married. Yes, the mountain got bit away a few fractions of an inch. Millions of gallons of water went by the mill, and here and there, a new home was set up under a roof. Almost everybody in the world gets married. You know what I mean? In our town, there aren't hardly any exceptions. Most everybody climbs into their graves married. The first act was called The Daily Life. This act is called Love and Marriage. There's another act coming after this. I reckon you can guess what that's about. So it's 3 years later. It's 1904. It's July 7th, just after high school commencement. That's the time most of our young people jump up and get married. As soon as they've passed their last examinations in solid geometry and Cicero's orations, looks like they suddenly feel themselves fit to be married. It's early morning, only this time it's been raining. It's been pouring and thundering. Miss Gibbs' garden and Mrs. Webb's drenched. All those bean poles and pea vines drenched. All yesterday over there on Main Street, the rain looked like curtains being blown along. It may start again any minute. There. You can hear the 5:45 for Boston. And there's Miss Gibbs and Miss Webb come down to make breakfast, just as though it were an ordinary day. I don't have to point out to the women in my audience that those ladies they see before them, both those ladies, cook 3 meals a day. One of them for 20 years and the other for 40, and no summer vacation. They brought up 2 children apiece, washed, cleaned the house, and never a nervous breakdown. Never thought themselves hard used either. It's like what one of those Middle West poets say. You've got to love life to have life. And you got to have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious circle. Here comes Howie Newsom delivering the milk.
Morning, Si.
And there's Si
Morning,
Crowell
Howie.
delivering the papers like his brother before him.
Anything in the papers I ought to know?
Nothing much. Except we're losing the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corners ever had.
Yeah, reckon he is.
And now all he'll be doing is pitch and hang.
Whoa, Bessie. Guess I can stop and talk if I have a mind to.
He could hit, too, and run bases.
Yeah, mighty fine ball player.
Don't see I could give up a thing like that just to get married. Would you have, Howie?
Can't tell, Si. Never had no talent that way.
Morning, Howie.
Hello, Bill.
Hi, Mr. Watts.
You're up early.
Seeing if there's anything I can do to prevent a flood. The river has been rising all night.
Si Crowell's all worked up here about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir, that's the way it goes. Back in '84, we had a player, Si, even George Gibbs couldn't touch him. Name of Hank Todd. Went down to Maine and become a parson. Wonderful ball player. Howie, how does the weather look to you?
Oh, tain't bad. Think maybe it'll clear up for good. Morning, Miss Gibbs.
Good morning, Howie.
Too bad about the weather. It's been raining so heavy that maybe it'll clear up.
Certainly hope it will.
How much did you want today?
I'm going to have a house full of relations, Howie. Looks to me like I'll need 3 of milk, 2 of cream.
My wife says to tell you we both hope they'll be very happy, Miss Gibbs. No, they will.
Thanks a lot, Howie. You tell your wife I hope she gets there to the wedding.
Yeah, she'll be there. She'll be there if she can. Morning, Miss Webb.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Newsom. I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I hope you can spare me another.
Yes, sir, and the 2 of cream.
Will it start raining again, Mr. Newsom?
Well, just saying to Mrs. Gibbs how it may lighten up. Mrs. Newsom told me to tell you is how we hope they'll both be very happy, Miss Webb. No, they will.
Thank you. And thank Mrs. Newsom. And we're counting on seeing you at the wedding.
Yes, Miss Webb, we hope to get there. Couldn't miss that. Come on, Bessie.
Well, Ma, the day has come. You're losing one of your chicks.
Frank Gibbs, don't you say another word. I feel like crying every minute. Sit down and drink your coffee.
The groom is up shaving himself. Only they ain't an awful lot to shave. He's just whistling and singing like he's glad to leave us. Every now and then he says, I do, to the mirror, but it don't sound convincing to me.
I declare I don't know how they'll get along. I've arranged his clothes and seen to it he's put warm things on. Oh, Frank, they're too young. Emily won't think of such things. He'll catch his death of cold within a week.
I was remembering my wedding morning, Julia.
Now, don't start that, Frank Gibbs.
I was the scariest young fella in the state of New Hampshire. I thought I'd made a mistake for sure. And when I saw you coming down that aisle, I thought you were the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. Only trouble was, I'd never seen you before. There I was, in the Congregational Church, marrying a total stranger.
And how do you think I felt? I tell you, Frank, weddings are perfectly awful things. Farces, that's what they are. Here, I've made something for you.
Why, Julia Hersey. French toast?
Ain't hard to make. Had to do something. Did you hear Rebecca stirring around upstairs?
No, only day of the year. Rebecca hasn't been managing everybody's business up there. She's hiding in her room. I got the impression she's crying.
Oh, Lord's sakes, this has got to stop. Rebecca? Rebecca, come get your breakfast.
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours to live.
George Gibbs, where are you going?
Just stepping across the grass to see my gal.
Now, George, put on your overshoes. It's raining torrents. You don't go out of his house without you're prepared for it.
Oh, Ma, it's just a step.
You'll catch your death of cold and cough all through the service.
George, do as your mother tells you.
From tomorrow on, you can kill yourself in all weathers. While you're in my house, you'll live wisely. Thank you. Maybe Mrs. Webb isn't used to callers at 7 in the morning. Yeah, take a cup of coffee, please.
Be back in a minute. Good morning, Mother Webb.
Oh, goodness, you frightened me. Now, George, you can come in a minute out of the wet, but you know I can't ask you in.
Why not?
George, you know as well as I do, the groom can't see his bride on his wedding day. Not until he sees her in church.
Oh, that's just a superstition. Good morning, Mr. Webb.
Morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that superstition, do you?
Lot of common sense in some superstitions, George.
Millions have followed it, George. And you won't be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How's Emily?
She hasn't waked up yet. Haven't heard a sound about her.
Emily's asleep?
No wonder. We're up till all hours sewing and packing. I'll tell you what I'll do, George. You sit down here a minute with Mr. Webb and drink this cup of coffee. And I'll go upstairs and see she doesn't come down and surprise you. There's some bacon, too, but don't be long about it.
Well, George, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Mr. Webb, what sense could there be in a superstition like that?
Well, you see, on a wedding morning, a girl's head's apt to be full of clothes, one thing and another. Don't you think that's probably it?
Yes. I never thought of that.
Girls have to be mighty nervous on a wedding day.
I wish a fella could get married without all that marching up and down.
Every man that ever lives felt that way about it, George. But it hasn't been any use. It's the women folk who built up weddings, my boy. Man looks pretty small at a wedding, All those good women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure the knot's tied in a mighty public way.
Well, but you believe in it, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Now, don't you misunderstand me, my boy. Marriage is a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing, George, and don't you forget that.
No, sir. Mr. Webb, how old were you when you got married?
Well, you see, I'd been to college. I'd taken some time to get settled. But Mrs. Webb, she wasn't much older than what Emily is. Oh, age hasn't much to do with it, George. Not compared with other things.
What were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
Oh, I don't know. Was I going to say something? George, I was thinking the other night of some advice my father gave me when I got married. Charles, he said, Charles, start out early showing who's boss, he said. Best thing to do is give an order, even if it don't make sense, just so she'll learn to obey. And he said, if anything about your wife irritates you, a conversation or anything, just get up and leave the house. That'll make it clear to her, he said. Oh, yes. He said, never. Never let your wife know how much money you have. Never.
Well, Mr. Webb, I don't think I could.
So I took the opposite of my father's advice, and I've been happy ever since. And let that be a lesson to you, George, never to ask advice on personal matters. George, are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Or are you going to raise chickens on your farm?
Well, Uncle Luke's never been much interested.
Book came into my office the other day, George, on the Philo system raising chickens. I want you to read it. I'm thinking of beginning in a small way in the backyard, and I'm going to put an incubator in the cellar.
Charles, you talking about that old incubator again? I thought you two would be talking about things worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boy some good advice, I'll go upstairs and leave you alone with him.
George, Emily's got to come downstairs and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she doesn't want to lay eyes on you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Myrtle, I guess you don't know about that older superstition.
Well, what do you mean, Charles?
Since the cavemen, no bride and groom should see his father-in-law on the day of the wedding, or near it. I remember that.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Ms. Webb. Now, I have to interrupt again here. You see, we want to know how all this began. This wedding, this plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how big things like that begin. You know how it is. You're 21 or 22, you make some decisions and wish. You're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years, and that white-haired lady at your side's eaten over 50,000 meals with you. How do such things begin? George and Emily are going to show you now the conversation they had when they first knew that, as the saying goes, they were meant for one another. But before they do it, I want you to try and remember what it was like to have been very young. And particularly the days when you were first in love. When you were like a person sleepwalking, and you didn't quite see the street you were in, and you didn't quite hear everything that was said to you. You were just a little bit crazy. Will you remember that, please? Now, they're going to be coming out of school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of the junior class. And as it's June, that means he'll be president of the senior class all next year. And Emily has just been elected secretary and treasurer. I don't have to tell you how important that is. Yeah. There they are, coming down Main Street now.
Isn't that, Cicero, the worst thing? It's awful. Tell your mother you have to. I'll try. Goodbye. Bye. Bye, Helen. Bye, Fred.
Can I carry your books home for you, Emily?
Well, thank you. Just okay.
Oh, excuse me 1 minute, Emily. Say, Bob, if I'm a little late, start practice anyway. And give Herb some long high ones.
Bye, Lizzie.
Goodbye, Lizzie. I'm awful glad you're elected too, Emily.
Thank you.
Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me so funny lately.
Well, since you asked me, I might as well say it right out, George. Goodbye, Miss Corcoran.
Goodbye, Miss Corcoran. What is it?
I don't like the whole change that's come over you in the last year. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but I've got to tell the truth and shame the devil.
Change? What do you mean?
Well, up to a year ago, I used to like you a lot. And I used to watch you as you did everything. Because we'd been friends so long. And then you began spending all your time at baseball. And you never stopped to speak to anybody anymore. Not to really speak. Not even to your own family you didn't. And George, it's a fact. Ever since you've been elected captain, you've got awful conceited and stuck up. And all the girls say so. They may not say so to your face, but that's what they say about you behind your back. And it hurts me to hear them say it. But, well, I've got to agree with them a little. And I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings, but I can't be sorry I said it.
Well, I'm glad you said it, Emily. I never thought such a thing was happening to me. I guess it's hard for a fella not to have faults creep into his character.
I always expect a man to be perfect. I think he should be.
Oh, I don't think it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
Well, my father is. As far as I can see, your father is. There's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be, too.
Well, I feel it's the other way around. That men aren't naturally good. But girls are.
Well, you might as well know right now that I'm not perfect. It's not as easy for a girl to be perfect as a man. We girls are more... We're more... nervous. I'm sorry I said all that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily?
I can see it's not the truth at all, and I suddenly feel it isn't important anyway.
Emily, would you like an ice cream soda or something before you go home?
Thank you. I would.
Hello, Stu. How are you? Good afternoon, Miss Slocum.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What do you have? Why, Emily Webb, what you been crying about?
She just had an awful scare, Mr. Morgan. She almost got run over. By that hardware store wagon, everybody says that Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
Well, now you take a drink of water, Emily. You look all shook up. I tell you, you gotta look both ways before you cross Main Street these days. It's worse every year. What do you have?
Well, I'll have strawberry phosphate. Thank you, Mr.
No,
Morgan.
no. Emily, have an ice cream soda with 2 strawberry ice cream sodas, Mr. Morgan.
2 strawberry ice cream sodas. Yes, sir. There are 125 horses in Grover's Corners this minute I'm talking to him. State inspector was here yesterday. And now they're bringing in these automobiles. Best thing to do is just stay home. Why, I can remember when a dog could go to sleep right in the middle of Main Street and nothing come along disturbing. Hey, Enjoy them. Yes, Miss Alice, what can I do?
So expensive.
No, no. Don't you think of that, Emily. We're celebrating our election. And then, do you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
I'm celebrating because I've got a friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told me.
George, please don't think of that. I don't know why I said it. It's not true.
No, Emily. You stick to it. I'm glad you spoke to me like you did. But you'll see, I'm gonna change so quick. You bet I'm gonna change. And Emily, I want to ask you a favor.
What?
Emily, if I go away to State Agricultural College next year, will you write me a letter every once in a while?
Certainly will. I certainly will, George. It certainly seems like being away for 3 years, you'd get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't be so interesting after a while. Grover's Corners isn't a very important place when you think of all of New Hampshire. I think it's a very nice town.
The day wouldn't come when I wouldn't want to know everything that's happening here. And I know that's true, Emily.
I'll try to make my letters interesting.
You know, Emily, whenever I meet a farmer, I ask him if he thinks it's important to go to agricultural school to be a good farmer.
Why, George.
Yeah. And some of them say it's even a waste of time. Well, you can get all those things anyway out of the pamphlets the government sends out. And Uncle Luke's getting old. He's about ready for me to start in taking over his farm. Tomorrow, if I could. And like you say, being gone all that time in other places and meeting other people, gosh, if anything like that can happen, I don't want to go away. And I guess new people aren't any better than old ones. I bet they almost never are. And Emily, I feel you're as good a friend as I got. So I don't need to go and meet the people in other towns.
But George, maybe it's very important for you to go and learn all that about cattle judging and soils and those things. Of course, I don't know.
Emily, I'm gonna make up my mind right now. I won't go. I'll tell Pa about it tonight.
Well, I don't see why you have to decide right now. It's a whole year away.
Emily, I'm so glad you spoke to me about that fault in my character. What you said was right. But there was one thing wrong in it, and that's when you said that for a year I wasn't noticing people. And you, for instance, while you say you were watching me when I did everything, I was doing the same about you all the time. Why, sure. I always thought about you as one of the chief people I thought about. And I always made sure where you were sitting in the bleachers and who you were with. And for 3 days now, I've been trying to walk home with you, but something's always gotten in the way. And yesterday, I was standing over there waiting for you against the wall. And you walked home with Miss Corcoran.
George, life's awful funny. Why, how could I have known that?
Emily, I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to agricultural school. I think that once you found the person that you're fond of, I mean a person who's fond of you too, and who likes you enough to be interested in your character. Oh, I think that's just as important as college is, and even more so. That's what I think.
I think it's awfully important, too.
Emily?
Yes, George?
Emily, if I do improve and make a big change, would you be? Or could you be?
I am now. I always have been.
So I guess this is an important talk we've been having.
Yes. Yes.
Emily, wait a minute, and I'll walk you home.
What?
Mr. Morgan? I'm gonna have to go home and get the money to pay you for this, but it'll only take me a minute.
What's that? George Gibbs, you mean to tell me?
Yes, but I had reasons, Mr. Morgan. Look, here's my gold watch to keep till I come back.
That's all right. Keep your watch. I'll trust you, George.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, not a day over. Get all over your shock, Emily?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing.
I'm ready.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, George. Now, before we go on to the wedding, there is still some more things we ought to know about this marriage. You know as well as I do, people are never able to say right out what they think of money or death or fame or marriage. You've got to catch it between the lines. You've got to overhear it.
Rebecca, it's time you turned out your light and went to sleep. George, you better get some sleep, too.
Ma, I haven't finished my English.
All right, I'll give you 10 more minutes. If you haven't finished by then, you'll just have to fail the course and be a disgrace to your father and me. George, what are you doing?
I'm doing history.
Well, you better go to bed. You're probably sleeping at the desk as it is.
I had a long talk with the boy today.
Did you?
I tell you, Mrs. G, there is nothing so terrifying in the world as a son. The relation of a father to a son is the damnedest, awkwardest. I always come away feeling like a soggy sponge of hypocrisy.
Well, a mother and daughter is no picnic, let me tell you.
George has set on it. He wants to marry Emily. As soon as school's out, take her right on to the farm.
He always was crazy about farming. Gets that from my people.
I swear, I think he's too young to get married. Julia, he's just a green, half-grown kid. He isn't ready to be a family man.
No, he ain't. You're right. But he's a good boy. I wouldn't like to think of him being alone out there. Coming into town on Saturday nights like any old farmhand. Tuckered out from work, looking for excitement. Might get into bad ways. You know, Frank, I've been watching Emily. George is a lucky boy when you think of all the silly girls in the world.
But Julia, George married that great, gangling, selfish nincompoop.
Yes, I know. Frank, what do you do to your collars? Do you know 'em? I never saw such a man for collars.
When I married you, Julia, do you know what one of my terrors was in getting married?
Sure, go on with you.
I was afraid we wouldn't have material for conversation more than last us a few weeks. I was afraid we'd run out and eat our meals in silence, that's a fact. You and I have been conversing for 20 years now without any noticeable barren spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather. Their very choice. I always manage to find something to say.
What do you think? What do you think, Julia? Shall we tell the boy he can go ahead and get married?
Seems like it's up to us to decide. Myrtle and Charles Webb are willing. They think it's a good idea to throw the young people into the sea, let them sink or swim as soon as they're ready.
Here it is. Almost April. I'll go up and say a word to him before he goes to bed. You're sure, Julia? You've nothing more to add?
I don't know what to say. Seems like it's too much to ask a big outdoor boy like that to go and get shut up in classrooms for 3 years. Once he's on the farm, he might as well have a companion, seeing he's found a fine girl like Emily. People are meant to live 2 by 2 in this world. Yes, Frank, go up and tell him it's all right. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. No, go up and tell him.
Why did you stop then, Julia?
Oh, you know. I thought of all those times we went through in the first years when George and Rebecca were babies. You walking up and down with them at 3 in the morning. The whooping cough. The time George fell off the porch. It's wonderful how one forgets one's troubles like that. Yes, Frank. Go upstairs and tell him. It's worth it.
Yes, they'll have lots of troubles. Let them. It's none of our business. Everybody's got a right to his own trouble. You ought to be present, Julie, at an important occasion like that. I'll call him. George! Oh, George!
Yes, Pa?
Can you come down a minute? Your mother and I'd like to speak to you.
Yeah, sure.
Lord, what a fool I am. I'm trembling all over. There's nothing to tremble about.
Well, now we're ready to get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things to be said about a wedding, a lot of thoughts that go on during the wedding. We can't get them all into one wedding, naturally, especially not into a wedding at Grover's Corners, where they're awfully plain and short. Now, in this wedding, I play the minister. That gives me the right to say a few more things about it. For a while now, the play gets pretty serious. You see, some churches say that marriage is a sacrament. Well, I don't quite know what that means, but I can guess. Like Miss Gibbs said a few minutes ago, people were made to live 2 by 2. This is a good wedding, but people are so put together that even at a good wedding, there's a lot of confusion way down deep in people's minds, and we thought that ought to be in our play, too. The real hero of this scene isn't on the stage at all, and you know who that is. It's like what one of those European fellas said. Every child born into the world is nature's attempt to make a perfect human being. We've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now. We all know that nature's interested in quantity. But I think she's interested in quality, too. That's why I'm in the ministry. And don't forget all the other witnesses at this wedding. The ancestors, millions of them. Most of them set out to live 2 by 2 also. Millions of them. Well, that's all of my sermon. It wasn't very long anyway.
There's George. George, look at you, all dressed up like that.
If you have any trouble, George, call us. We know what to do.
Yeah, don't look so innocent, George. We know what to do.
All right, that'll do. That's enough of that.
Hey, take it easy, George. Don't disgrace the team, big boy. Yeah, don't let us down, George.
Used to be an awful lot of that sort of thing in the old days, Rome and later. We're more civilized now, so they say.
I don't know why on earth I should be crying. I suppose there's nothing to cry about. It came over me at breakfast this morning. There was Emily, eating her breakfast, as she's done for 17 years. And now, she's going off to eat it in someone else's house. I suppose that's it. And Emily, she suddenly said, I can't eat another mouthful. And she put her head down on the table. And she cried. Oh, I got to say it. You know, there's something downright cruel about sending our girls out into marriage this way. I hope some of her girlfriends told her a thing or two. It's cruel, I know, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I went into it blind as a bat myself. The whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter.
I wish I were back at school. I don't want to get married.
George, what's the matter?
I don't want to grow old. Why's everybody pushing me so?
What, George, you wanted it.
Why do I have to get married at all? Now listen, Ma, for the last time
No, you're a man now.
Listen, Ma, you never listen to me. All I want to do is be
If anyone should
about...
hear you, now stop. I'm ashamed of you.
What's the matter? I've been dreaming. Where's Emily?
Gracious, you gave me such a turn.
Cheer up, Ma. What are you looking so funny for? Cheer up, I'm getting married.
Let me catch my breath a minute.
Now, Ma, you save Thursday nights. Emily and I are coming over for dinner every Thursday night. You'll see. Ma, what are you crying for?
I never felt so alone in my whole life. George over there looking so... I hate him. I wish I were dead. Papa? Papa?
Emily, now don't get upset.
Papa, I don't want to get married.
Emily, everything's all right.
Why can't I stay for a while just as I am? Let's go away.
No, Emily, now stop and think a
Don't you
minute.
remember what you used to say to me? All the time you used to say, all the time, that I was your girl. There must be lots of places we can go to. I'll work for you. I could keep house.
Now, you mustn't think of such things. You're just nervous, Emily. Why, you're marrying the best young fella in the world. George is a fine fella. George, will you come here a minute?
Papa?
I'm giving away my daughter, George. You think you can take care of her?
Mr. Webb, I want to try. Emily, I'll do my best. I love you, Emily. I need you.
If you love me, then help me. All I want is someone to love me.
I will.
If ever I'm sick or in trouble, that's what I mean.
Emily, I'll try.
And I mean forever. Do you hear? Forever and ever.
Come, they're waiting for us.
You, George, take this woman, Emily, to be your
Perfectly lovely wedding.
wife.
Loveliest wedding I ever saw. Women do love a good wedding, don't you? Doesn't she make a lovely bride?
To love and to cherish till death do you part.
I do.
Do you, Emily, take this man, George?
Don't know when I've seen such a lovely wedding, but I always cry. Don't know why it is, but I always cry. I just like to see young people happy, don't you?
I do.
The ring.
I've married 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. I suppose I do. Em marries N, millions of them. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will, once in 1,000 times. It's interesting.
Such a nice wedding. I'm sure they'll be happy. I always say happiness, that's the great thing. The important thing is to be happy.
This time, 9 years have gone by, friends. Summer, 1913. Gradual changes in Grover's Corners. Horses getting rarer, farmers coming into town in Fords. Chief difference is in the young people, as far as I can see. They want to go to moving pictures all the time. Want to wear clothes like they see there. Want to be cityfied. Everybody locks the house doors now at night. Ain't been any burglars in town yet, but everybody's heard about them. You'd be surprised, though, on the whole. Things don't change much around here. Now, here's a part of our town you haven't seen yet. Smarter ones have already guessed where we are. Certainly is a beautiful place. A hilltop. Windy hilltop, lots of sky, lots of clouds. Often lots of sun and moon and stars. You come up here on a fine afternoon, you can see range on range of hills. Awful blue they are. Up there by Lake Sunapee and Lake Winnipesaukee. And way up, if you've got a glass, you can see the White Mountains and Mount Washington, where North Conway and Conway is. And of course, our favorite mountain, Mount Monadnock's right here. All these towns that lie around it, Jaffrey and East Jaffrey and Peterborough, Dublin. And there, quite a ways down, is Grover's Corners. Yeah, beautiful spot up here. Mountain laurel and lilacs. I often wonder why people like to be buried in Woodlawn in Brooklyn when they might pass the same time up here in New Hampshire. Over there are the old stones, 1670, 1680, strong-minded people that came a long way to be independent. Some people walk around there laughing at the funny words on the tombstones that don't do any harm. And genealogists come up from Boston, get paid by city people for looking up their ancestors. They want to make sure they're daughters of the American Revolution and of the Mayflower. Well, I guess that don't do any harm either. Wherever you come near the human race, there's layers and layers of nonsense. Over there are some Civil War veterans. Iron flags on their graves. New Hampshire boys had a notion the Union ought to be kept together, though they'd never seen more than 50 miles of it themselves. All they knew was the name, friends. The United States of America. The United States of America. They went and died about it. This here is the new part of the cemetery. Here's your friend, Miss Gibbs. And let me see now. Here's Mr. Stimson, organist at the Congregational Church. And Mrs. Soames, who enjoyed the wedding so. Oh, and lots of others. Constable Warren. And, Editor Webb's boy, Wallace, whose appendix burst on a Boy Scout trip to Crawford Notch. Yes, an awful lot of sorrow was sort of quieted down up here. People just wild with grief have brought their relatives up to this hill. We all know how it is. And then time and sunny days and rainy days and snow. We all know how it is. This certainly is an important part of Grover's Corners. A lot of thoughts come up here, night and day. But there's no post office. Now, I'm going to tell you some things that you know already. You know them as well as I do, but you don't take them out and look at them very often. I don't care what they say with their mouths. Everybody knows that something is eternal. And it ain't houses, and it ain't names, and it ain't earth, and it ain't even the stars. Everybody knows in their bones that something is eternal. And that something has to do with human beings. All the greatest people ever lived been telling us that for 5,000 years, and yet you'd be surprised how people are always losing hold of it. There's something way down deep that's eternal about every human being. You know as well as I do, the dead don't stay interested in us living people for very long. Gradually, they lose hold of the earth, the ambitions they had, and the pleasures they had, and the things they suffered, and the people they loved. They get weaned away from earth. That's the way I put it, weaned away. And they stay here while the earth part of them burns away, burns out. And all that time, they slowly get indifferent to what's going on in Grover's Corners. They're waiting. They're waiting for something they feel is coming, something important and great. Aren't they waiting for the eternal part in them to come out clear? Now, some of the things they're going to say will maybe hurt your feelings, but that's the way it is. Mother and daughter, husband and wife, enemy and enemy, money and miser, all those terribly important things kind of grow pale around here. What's left when memory's gone and your identity, Mrs. Smith? Well, there's some living people. There's Joe Stoddard, our undertaker, supervising a new-made grave. And here comes a Grover's Corners boy that left town to go out
Joe
west.
Stoddard. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. And let me see now. Do I know you?
I'm Sam Craig.
Gracious sakes alive, of all people. I might have known you'd be back for the funeral. You've been away a long time, Sam.
Yes, I've been away over 12 years. I'm in business out in Buffalo now, Joe, but I was in the East when I got the news of my cousin's death, so I thought I'd combine things a little and come and see the old home. You look well.
Yes, can't complain. Very sad, our journey today, Samuel.
Yes.
Yeah, I always say I hate to supervise when a young person is taken. They'll be here in a few minutes now. I had to come here early today. My son's supervising at the home.
Oh, Farmer McCarty. I used to do chores for him after school. He had the lumbago.
Yeah, we brought Farmer McCarty here a number of years ago now.
Why, this is my Aunt Julia. I've forgotten that she...
Yes, Jock Gibbs lost his wife 2-3 years ago, about this time. And today is another pretty bad blow for him, too.
That's my sister Carrie's boy, Sam. Sam Craig.
Always uncomfortable when they're around.
Simon.
Do they choose their own verses very much, Joe?
Well, not usual. Mostly the bereaved pick a verse.
Doesn't sound like Aunt Julia. There are not many of those Hersey sisters left now. Let me see. I wanted to look at my father's and mother's grave.
Over the Craigs, Avenue F.
Well, he was organist at church, wasn't he? He drank a lot, we used to say.
Nobody was supposed to know about it. He'd seen a peck of trouble. Took his own life, you know.
Oh, did he?
Hung himself in the attic. They tried to hush it up at the time, but of course it got around. He chose his own epitaph. You can see it there. Ain't a verse exactly.
Why, it's just some notes of music. What is it?
Oh, I wouldn't know. It was all wrote up in the Boston papers at the time.
Joe, what did she die of? Who? My cousin.
Oh, didn't you know? Had trouble bringing a baby into the world. It was her second, though. There's a little boy, about 4 years old. Oh, you'll excuse me now. I see they're coming.
Rain'll do a lot of good.
Yeah. Reckon things were getting downright hard.
Don't look like it's gonna last long, though.
Who is it, Julia?
It's my daughter-in-law, Emily Webb.
Well, I declare. The road up here must have been awful muddy. What did she die of, Julia?
In childbirth.
Childbirth? I'd forgotten all about that. My, wasn't life awful. And wonderful.
Wonderful, was it?
Simon, now remember.
I remember Emily's wedding. Wasn't it a lovely wedding? And I remember her reading the class poem at graduation exercises. Emily was one of the brightest girls ever graduated from high school. I've heard Principal Wilkins say so time after time. I called on them at their new farm just before I died. Perfectly beautiful farm.
You found the same road we lived on.
Yep, just near the Elk picnic grounds. Remember, Joe?
Always liked that hymn. I was hoping they'd sing a hymn.
Hello, Miss Gibbs.
Hello, Mother Gibbs.
Emily.
Hello. It's raining.
Yes. They'll be gone soon, dear. Just rest yourself.
It seems thousands and thousands of years since Papa remembered that was my favorite hymn. Oh, I wish I'd been here a long time. I don't like being new here. How do you do, Mr. Simpson?
How do you do, Emily?
Mother Gibbs, George and I have made that farm into just the best place you ever saw. We thought of you all the time. We wanted to show you the new barn and a great long cement drinking fountain for the stock. We bought that out of the money you left us.
I did.
Don't you remember, Mother Gibbs? The legacy you left us. Why, it was over $350.
Yes, yes, Emily.
Well, there's a patent device on the drinking fountain so that it never overflows, Mother Gibbs. And it never sinks below a certain mark they have there. It's fine. Won't be the same to George without me. But it's a lovely farm. Live people don't understand, do they?
No, dear. Not very much.
They're sort of shut up in little boxes, aren't they? I feel as though I knew them last 1,000 years ago. My boy is spending the day at Mrs. Carter's. Oh, Mr. Carter, my little boy is spending the day at your house.
Is he?
Yes, he loves it there. Mother Gibbs, we have a Ford, too. Never gives any trouble. I don't drive, though. Mother Gibbs, when does this feeling go away? This feeling of being one of them. How long does it...
Just wait and be patient.
I know. Well, look, they're finished. They're going. Look, Father Gibbs is bringing some of my flowers to you. Oh, Mother Gibbs, I never realized before how troubled and how in the dark live persons are. Oh, look at him. I loved him so. From morning until night, that's all they are. Troubled.
Little cooler than it was.
Yeah. That rain cooled it off a little.
Those northeast winds always do the same thing, don't they? If 'tisn't a rain, it's a 3-day blow.
Mother Gibbs, one can go back. One can go back there again into living. I feel it. I know it. Why, just then for a moment I was thinking about the farm. And for a minute I was there. And my baby was on my lap as plain as day.
Yes, of course you can.
I can go back there and live all those days over again. Why not?
All I can say is, Emily, don't.
But it's true, isn't it? I can go and live back there again.
Yes, some have tried, but they soon come back here.
Don't do it, Emily.
Emily, don't. It's not what you think it'd be.
But I won't live over a sad day. I'll choose a happy one. I'll choose the day I first knew that I loved George. Why should that be painful?
You not only live it, but you watch yourself living it. And as you watch yourself, you see the thing that they down there never know. You see the future. You know what's going to happen afterwards.
Is that painful? Why?
That's not the only reason why you shouldn't do it, Emily. When you've been here longer, you'll see that our life here is to forget all that and to think only of what's ahead and be ready for what's ahead. When you've been here longer, you'll understand.
Mother Gibbs, how can I ever forget that life? That's all I know. That's all I had.
Oh, Emily, it isn't wise. Really, it isn't.
But it's a thing I must know for myself. I'll choose a happy day anyway.
No. At least choose an unimportant day. Choose the least important day of your life. It'll be important enough.
Then it can't be since I was married. Or since the baby was born. I can choose a birthday at least, can't I?
All right.
I choose my 12th birthday.
February 11, 1899, a Tuesday. You want any special time of the day?
Oh, I want the whole day.
We'll begin at dawn. You remember, it had been snowing for several days, but it had stopped the night before. And they'd begun clearing the roads. The sun's coming up.
Look, there's Main Street. And that's Mr. Morgan's drugstore before he changed it. And there's the livery stable.
Yes, it's 1899. This 14 years ago.
That's the town I knew as a little girl. Look, there's the old white fence that used to be around our house. Oh, I'd forgotten that. I love it so. Are they inside?
Yes. Your mother's going to be coming downstairs any minute to make breakfast.
Will she?
And you remember your father had been away for several days. He came back on the early morning train.
No.
He'd been back to his college to make a speech in Western New York at Clinton.
Look, there's Howie Newsom.
Whoa, Bessie. Bessie.
Morning, Howie.
And there's our policeman.
Bill. You're up early.
But he's
Been
dead. He
rescuing a party.
died.
Darn near froze to death. Down by Polish Town there. Got drunk and laid out in the snowdrifts. Thought he was in bed when I shook him.
And there's Joe
Mr.
Crowell.
Warren. Morning, Howie.
Children? Wally, Emily, time to get up.
Mom, I'm here. Oh, how young Mama looks. I didn't know Mama was ever that young.
You can come dressed by the kitchen fire if you like. But hurry.
Morning, Miss Webb.
Oh, it's cold.
Yeah, 10 below by my barn, Miss Webb.
Think of it. Well, keep yourself wrapped up.
Come on, Bessie. Get up.
Mama? Mama, I can't find my blue hair ribbon anywhere.
Just open your eyes, dear, that's all. I laid it out for you special on the dresser there. If it were a snake, it would bite you.
Morning, Bill.
Morning, Mr. Webb. You're out early.
Yeah, just been back to my old college in New York State. Been in any trouble here?
Well, I was called out this morning to rescue a Polish fella. Darn near froze to death he was.
We must get it in the paper.
Oh, twat much.
Good morning, Mother.
How'd it go, Charles?
Oh, fine, I guess. I told him a few things. Everything all right here?
Yes? Can't think of anything that's happened special. It's been right cold. Howie Newsom says it's 10 below over to his barn.
Yeah? Well, it's colder than that at Hamilton College. Students' ears are falling off. They ain't Christian. Paper have any mistakes in it?
None that I noticed. Coffee's ready when you want it. Charles, don't forget, it's Emily's birthday. Did you remember to get her something?
Oh, I've got something here. Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
Oh, don't interrupt her now, Charles. You can see her at breakfast. She's slow enough as it is. Hurry up, children. It's 7 o'clock.
They're so young and
Oh,
beautiful.
again.
Why did they ever have to get old? Mama, I'm here. I'm grown up. I love you all. Everything. Oh, I can't look at everything hard enough. Come on in, Mama.
Well, now, dear, a very happy birthday to my girl, and many happy returns. There's some surprises waiting for you on the kitchen table.
Oh, Mommy, you shouldn't have.
But birthday or no birthday, I want you to eat your breakfast good and slow. I want you to grow up and be a good, strong girl. That in the blue paper's from your Aunt Carrie. And I reckon you can guess who brought the postcard album. I found it on the doorstep when I brought in the milk. George Gibbs. Must have come over in the cold pretty early. Right nice of him.
George, I'd forgotten that.
Chew that bacon good and slow. Help keep you warm on a cold day.
Mama? Mama, just look at me 1 minute as though you really saw me. Mama, 14 years have gone by. I'm dead. You're a grandmother, Mama. I married George Gibbs, Mama. Wally's dead, too. Mama, his appendix burst on a camping trip to North Conway. We all felt just terrible about it. Don't you remember? But just for a moment now, we're all together. Just for a moment, we're happy. Let's look at one another.
That in the yellow paper's something I found in the attic. Among your grandmother's things. You're old enough to wear it now, and I thought you'd like it.
And this is from you. Why, Mama, it's lovely. And it's just what I wanted. It's beautiful.
Well, I hoped you'd like it. I hunted all over. Your Aunt Nora couldn't find one in Concord, so I had to send it all the way to Boston. Wally has something for you, too. He made it manual training class, and he's very proud of it. Be sure you make a big fuss about it. Your father has a surprise for you, too. Don't know what it is myself. Shh, here he comes.
Where's my girl? Where's my birthday girl?
I can't! I can't go on. It goes so fast. We don't have time to look at one another. I didn't realize so all that was going on. We never noticed. Take me back up the hill to my grave. But first, wait. One more look. Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners. Mama. And Pop. Goodbye to clocks ticking. And my butternut tree. And Mama's sunflowers. And food. And coffee. And new iron dresses. And hot baths. And sleeping. And waking up. Oh, Earth. You're too wonderful for anybody to realize you. Do any human beings ever realize life while they live it? Every minute?
No. Saints and poets, maybe, they do some.
I'm ready to go back.
Were you happy?
No. I should have listened to you. That's all human beings are, just blind people.
Look, it's clearing up. Stars are coming out.
Oh, Mr. Stimson, I should have listened to.
Yes, now you know. Now you know. That's what it was to be alive. To move about in a cloud of ignorance. To go up and down trampling on the feelings of those about you. To spend and waste time as though you had 1,000,000 years. To be always at the mercy of one self-centered passion or another. Now you know that's the happy existence you wanted to go back to. Ignorance and blindness.
Simon Stimson, that ain't the whole truth, and you know it. Emily, look at that star. I forget its name.
I'm getting to know them all, but I don't know their names.
My boy Joel was a sailor and knew them all. He'd sit on the porch evenings and tell them all by name. Yes, sir. It was wonderful.
A star's mighty good company.
Yeah, it is.
Here's one of them coming.
Take no time for one of them to be here.
Mother Gibbs, it's George.
Shh, dear. You just rest yourself.
It's George.
My boy Joel, who knew the stars, he used to say it took millions of years for that speck of light to get to the earth. Don't seem like a body could believe it. That's what he used to say. Millions of years.
Goodness, that ain't no way to behave.
You ought to be home.
The kids,
Yes, Emily.
they don't understand, do they?
No, dear. Not very much.
Most everybody's asleep in Grover's Corners. There are a few lights on. Shawty Hawkins down at the depot's just watched the Albany train go by, and at the livery stable, somebody's sitting up late and talking. Yeah, it's clearing up. There are the stars doing their old crisscross journeys in the sky. Scholars haven't settled the matter yet, but they seem to think there are no living beings up there. Just chalk or fire. Only this one is straining away all the time to make something of itself. Straining so bad that every 16 hours, everybody lies down and gets a rest. 11 o'clock, Grover's Corners. You get a good rest, too. Good night.